It's cool when they do it. It's the problem when I do it. Y'all know the rest. It's cool when they do it. It's a problem when we do it. How interesting. How interesting. For those of y'all who don't know who I am, my name is Mariah Sincere. I am a self love coach who does social commentary. I also specialize in helping people to radically transform their lives. I do one on one coaching. I give Spanish lessons. And if you travel to Latin America and you need a travel buddy, you can book me. So hit me up at thepassportsis@gmail.com. Speaking of Latin America, baby, we have an interesting conversation today. Hold on, let me get my audio together. Okay, it should be good now. All right. Yeah, we have a very interesting conversation today. Now, I would say, oh, how the tables turn to this issue, but apparently Mexico has been protesting immigration. They've been protesting legal immigration and illegal immigration. Y'all know how in this country the right tries to make it seem, no, the left tries to make it seem like the right is so racist and that the right doesn't want any type of immigration. Well, no, it seems like that happens to be the case with a rather large constituency of the population of Mexico, particularly the ones who live in major cities, right? When we say something about illegal immigration, we are automatically labeled as racist, xenophobic, and it's because we don't like Latinos, right? Uh, and they try to lump it all in together. Legal immigration, illegal immigration. Honestly, I don't meet too many Americans, even in the MAGA movement, who really care about legal immigration. Unless it's a situation like with that HB1 visa, where people like Elon Musk will try to hire foreigners to do the job cheaper, so that they don't have to hire American workers and that those foreigners can basically have to be a slave because they're trying to keep their visa. Most of the time, if Americans feel like they can actually compete and the wage is fair, we actually don't care about legal immigration. I never hear anybody talk about it too much. The problem with illegal immigration has always been that basically it drives the wages down and basically makes certain sectors of the workforce non-workable for an American citizen that has a family or that can provide for, like, is trying to provide for themselves. The reason why a lot of illegal immigrants are able to work for those low wages is because they'll live, you know, 10, 20 people in one home and they'll split the bills. And that's just not the standard of living that US citizens are accustomed to. And people can say, well, maybe we should start living like that. No, me personally, I could not. Absolutely not. The most I could see myself doing is like, okay, if I married a man, y'all know I live in Latin America. If I married a man and his mom needs to live with us or something like that, or somebody, a family member needs to come stay with us for a while. And the reason why I can't do that is because I have a daughter and I know what happens to children when you have too many people in one home. Okay, let's not play. And that doesn't have anything to do with race. The more you have all these different type of adults around your kids, the more likely it is that something crazy is going to happen to your kids. I'll leave it at that. Okay, so with that said, Americans just are not used to living like that and should not have to. That has not been the standard of living in the United States for a very long time. It makes me think of like during the Gilded Age when, we've had these waves and these cycles. The United States used to not have any laws on immigration. As a matter of fact, our first law on immigration, I believe, it was passed in like 1881 with the Chinese Exclusion Act. Let me look that up. It's been a while since I taught history, y'all. And basically, what happened with that is a lot of Irish people were living on the the West Coast. And a lot of the Irish people felt like, hey, we fought for the Union during the Civil War. Now we moved out here to the West Coast, and y'all don't want to hire us to work in the factories, or y'all don't want to pay us a livable wage to work in the railroads. So, what these big companies started doing is importing Chinese citizens in to replace a lot of the Irish working class over there. So that led to the beginning of the Know Nothing Party, which is really one of the first anti immigration movements here in the United States. And it led to immigration policies. Chinese Exclusion Act. But for a long time, people could just come over here and we would like process them, and there were no immigration quotas for a large part of our history. 1882, I'm sorry, I was off by a year. So in 1882, the Chinese Exclusion Act was passed. Uh, and it was the beginning of border immigration and restrictions in the United States. And at the time, people say it was racism, it was xenophobia. And sure, a lot of the times when you have a situation where somebody feels like another group is taking something from them, that is going to stir feelings of hate, and it will cause people to be racist, right? But that is oftentimes bred from a more practical necessity. It's basic economics, right? It just is a matter of fact that when you have people who are coming in and willing to work for lower wages, there is less available for you. Your life will be harder. It's a race to the bottom. Your standard and quality of living will go down. And you know, if you lose your job, you might go months without getting a job. You have families to feed. Now, I do think that people should be able to recognize that I don't have to hate somebody in order for me to understand the basic economics of this situation, right? It's not their fault. And even to this day, this new wave of mass immigration, I feel like you can say, hey, we need to deport the illegal immigrants without hating them. And I feel like that is majority of the MAGA base. Are you going to have your racists who were like, go back to where you came from and calling people names? Yes, of course. But ultimately, the problem is the fault of the United States government. The problem is the fault of the Biden Harris administration, who left those borders open for 4 years and who told people that they could come, these sanctuary cities, who told people that they could come and they were going to get housing and they were going to get food and they were going to get shelter and that we had jobs for them that we really don't have. There are not even any jobs in the illegal sector of the economy. Like that was full, right? So most of the people that came weren't even able to get a job. So, you know, they were sold a bill of goods. You can't blame people for trying to increase their station in life. I mean, let's be for real. A lot of people have a lot of false fantasies and notions about the United States. Y'all know I live in Colombia, which I feel like I'm the perfect person to speak about this issue with Mexico that we're about to talk about. But, you know, oftentimes when I talk to Colombian people, they think, like they really think this too, that we make more money in the United States, but we spend less, which is wow. The only thing that I could say that we spend less money on in the United States is electronics, but even then, it's not that much. And we spend less money on clothing. I feel like to find good clothing in the United States, it's costs less money. But rent, housing, other goods, transportation, cars, all of that, we spend a significant amount more, you know, minimum quadruple what Colombian people are spending. So they don't understand, if you're poor here, right? And you go and you try to make kind of like that the I don't want to say the equivalent, but you know, I guess the equivalent of what a person in the United States would be in terms of where they stand economically. a lot of Americans are not able to pay their bills at the end of the month. A lot of Colombians believe there are no poor Americans, that we are all living rich, lavish, and luxurious in the United States. So, in terms of like the basic economics of the situation, a lot of people in Latin America just do not understand how the maths. Hi, Jay. One, we spend on all the wrong things. Well, that's true. In the United States, we do have the biggest consumer economy, but at the same time, for the same things that we have in the United States, the Colombians in general or people in Latin America can generally get those things for a lot less. Like, do y'all understand what I'm saying? So, anyways, getting back to what I was saying. So, the first law that we ever passed on immigration was in 1882. It was the Chinese Exclusion Act, and basically it banned Chinese people from coming for a long time. And then finally, like I believe it was during World War One, we became allies with China, and then they repealed it, right? Because they extended it for a while. But initially it banned Chinese entry for 10 years. So those were our first laws on immigration in the United States. Then we can even go to the Gilded Age, because we didn't completely ban immigration, it just stopped Chinese immigration. If you take it all the way over to the East Coast, when we had our huge industrial boom, that is when the United States started importing Southern and Eastern Europeans in mass. A lot of Irish came during the potato factory to work inside of those factories, right? So you had another situation where you had Americans who had been here for generations clashing with European immigrants, because it was a situation where, again, it was a race to the bottom. These factories were paying these immigrants who were willing to live in tenement housing with no plumbing inside the buildings. Like, they literally had to go outside and take a shower. Some of these buildings had holes in them, and so a lot of American citizens at the time felt wronged. So, I mean, this country has a history of importing people from other countries to undercut the American citizens that have always been here. And I think when conditions are fair, most Americans really don't care about immigration. We are a country of immigrants. We've always had to assimilate. For people can call the United States a racist country, but you can go to whole states or whole cities in the United States and find an array of diversities, or it will look like it's a whole nother country, like if you go to Miami. So I think by now Americans are and even American white people try to make it seem like the vast majority of American white people are racist. And that's just so untrue, right? And you have different type, even within American white people, you have different cultures. You got your white people that live in Louisiana. Their culture is more like Southern Black people in Louisiana. You have your white people that live in Utah. Their culture is different than the white people who might live in Iowa. So we have so much diversity because we've allowed so much immigration into this country, and there have been clashes. But for the most part, most Americans do not necessarily care about different cultures being introduced into our society. We've learned to live together. It's the fact when the competition in the job market becomes unfair. It's the race to the bottom that American citizens don't like. Most of the time, we don't care as long as these people come and they're getting paid a fair wage. They're getting paid the same wages that we are so that we can compete. Now the system is merit based. Y'all understand what I'm saying? So, anyway, there has been a lot going on. Now, I will say Mexico has had a huge problem, and this is something that we haven't thought about. So, Mexico and their citizens have dealt with a lot of illegal immigration for the past 4 years. Why is that? Well, first of all, the route to come up through the southern border illegally starts in Colombia. I'll say it again for those of y'all who are just now coming in. I'm in Colombia right now, so I know this for a fact. A lot of the times when I come and I give y'all information, it's because I'm here. I know, I've seen things, I've talked to people, I've interviewed people. So I'm not just talking out of the sky. Um, it's not the nationality. There is hate in all cultures. Well, yeah, that's true. There's hate in all cultures. There are people who are hateful in all cultures. I'll agree with you on that. Guys, if y'all are just now coming in, please hit the like button. So a lot of these caravans of migrants go up through Mexico. They have to get through the southern border. Along the way, you have situations where crimes are committed, or there are these huge camps of people that are not supposed to be there from many different countries, not just Latin America. There are people coming from Asia. There are people coming from Africa. There are all kind of countries that are there, right? So you could only imagine that with that will come an increase in crime. If people can't pay their way, because you can't come up through the southern border for free. That's another misconception. That's how I can tell y'all unequivocally that the vast majority of people who come up it through the southern border are not seeking asylum. Do y'all know why? It costs money. It's not free. It's not cheap. You have to pay tolls along the way. And if you can't pay it monetarily, then you pay it with either your body or your children's body. And meaning you let the cartels essay your children, or you might sell one of your kids into child trafficking or to become a child soldier. These are things that happen. So a lot of Americans, especially liberals, think it's as simple as, oh, people are just walking up the border and they're like having to cross some rivers and they're poor. And it's like, no, you have to have some type of currency. Really, they prefer money. There are Western unions and things along the way, but like you cannot even start the journey if you are broke. The vast majority of these people that are coming for economic opportunity. They're not running from the cartel, or they're not running from gang violence. This is the vast majority of cases. A lot of the times, like I met a girl who worked in a coffee shop and she was like, I'm thinking of going through the southern border. Her and her family had an apartment here. She had kids here. She just didn't like that she was getting paid low wages and was like, I'm thinking about making that trip, going to the United States and racking up some money. Am I mad with her about that? No, but it's not means for an asylum claim, right? So anyway, Mexico has been dealing with this situation. Even now, Mexico's government has quietly agreed to take people who are not Mexican citizens and temporarily let them stay in Mexico until they figure out what to do with them, right? So I want to pull up this video about some protests that were going on in Mexico City. Now, just to give y'all some quick background information, there has been a huge migration out of the United States. The American dream used to be to get you a job that you could work for 40 years, buy a house with a white picket fence, and raise your family there, and maybe pass it on to your kids or sell the property off for retirement. But I mean, that dream is no longer attainable. Most millennials will never be able to buy a house. So, what's going on with a lot of millennials and retirees is that they're saying, well, I'm never going to be able to retire here. Things are too expensive. I have to work myself into the grave. So they're looking to take their US dollars and go to economies where it is cheaper. For example, here in Colombia, depending on the place, it's you could if you wanted to kind of live more rurally, you could buy a house for $80,000, and then if you're willing to put another $40,000 or $50,000 into it, you could renovate it and make it really modern. Here in Medellin, you could buy a 4-bedroom house for like, $250 to $300,000 now, which actually is very expensive for here. Like locals hear that and they're like, that is stupid expensive, right? But I mean that's the going price for it now. And part of that has been because Americans and people from Canada and Europe have decided that they want to come somewhere where they can actually buy something. And honestly, can you blame them? But I also understand the locals' point of view. With that has come resentment and anger. Now, what I will say is, like here in Colombia, there has always been a system of classism, right? So, who Americans are coming and pricing out is not necessarily the poor Colombians, no, or even the lower middle class Colombians. They're pricing out what used to be called the rich Colombians. They're pricing out the Colombians who were making $2,000 or $3,000 a month, which, yes, that makes you a part of the highest earning percentage here in Colombia. Most lawyers in Colombia take home like $2,000, right? So what's happening is it's starting to cause resentment. Now, I hate to say this, but a part of me kind of feels like because there's a huge system of classism here, like classism is rampant here to where people won't even talk to you if you associate with a poor person. Like it's that kind of vibes here with the rich people. A part of me feels like, well, this might be a little bit of karma for how y'all treat lower middle class and poor people here, but hey, that's not my business. But of course it has caused a lot of resentment. So we're going to take a look at this protest that happened in Mexico last week. Give me 1 second. So this happened in Mexico City. Now, off top, hopefully y'all can see this sign. This says pay taxes, speak Spanish, use pesos, or get out of here. So, to be clear, what she's talking about is the fact that in Mexico, if you come stay on a tourist visa for 6 months, this is what a lot of digital nomads do. A digital nomad is somebody who might go stay in a country for 6 months, or they might stay for longer than 6 months. They might get a nomad visa and stay for a year or 2 years or 3 years. Well, if you stay in a country for under 183 days, in Mexico, it's like under 183 days, you're not tax liable because you're just on a tourist visa. To be fair, though, the same applies for if you stay in the United States for under 183 days and you are not a U.S. citizen. Um, Give me 1 sec. Matter of fact, I'm gonna like look that up while we play the video because I believe that's the case. I'm gonna make sure. So, anyways, a lot of digital nomads, though, if they open up a business or they've made certain investments into the economy, they can take advantage of tax loopholes in Mexico. Well, the same can be done for legal immigrants in the United States. So, this whole issue of people paying taxes, that goes both ways, boo. Okay, so let me play this video.
Mostly peaceful. And what's got these Mexicans so upset is peak irony. When remote work became popular in 2020, more and more Americans moved to Mexico.
Okay, so guys, y'all see they are bashing out windows of gringo owners. So they're going to businesses where they know the owner is a gringo. For those of y'all who don't know what that is somebody from basically Canada or the United States who they could be or could not be Spanish speaking, right? It could be considered derogatory or just another term depending on the context. But when they're saying gringos go home, that is absolutely derogatory. And to be clear, this term is not just reserved for white Americans. So I know a lot of people of color that have never been to Latin America hear that and they're like, oh yeah, this is what white people deserve. And it's like, no, that term is reserved for you as well. That term is even reserved for a Mexican who grew up in the United States. So you are not exempt from being called gringo in a derogatory way just because you're a person of color. I just want to make that clear for those of y'all who like are seeing this, and I've seen comments that are like, "Oh, this is what these white people deserve." When they get mad at you, you are a gringo as well.
Mexico City to take advantage of cheaper prices.
There's just a dream that I have. And that dream is just to be treated like everyone else, to be treated fairly, equally, and to have peace. And Mexico City is the place where I've been able to achieve that.
Since then, prices have soared and people are pissed.
Pues el día de hoy estamos luchando contra la gentrificación. La gentrificación es este proceso por el cual las personas originarias de los barrios se ven desplazadas por gente con mayor poder adquisitivo. Es decir, gente que viene de otros países, en su mayoría extranjeros, a querer imponer su cultura, sus precios y desplazar a los mexicanos, a los nativos de estas tierras.
Huh. You're telling me mass migration has negative effects on the host city or country? Unbelievable! Some of these protest signs are so on the nose that I had to make sure I wasn't being swindled by AI. Gringo, stop stealing our home. Your new home is an invasion.
So they will call you again, and this is not all. These people who are protesting and think like this, they will call you a colonizer. They will say that you're invading. This is all over legal immigration. This is like legal immigration. The vast majority of American citizens that go to Mexico are there legally. Now, some people will say, oh, well, they're Americans overstaying their visa. There's a difference. The majority of the time, that happens here in Colombia. When an American citizen overstays their visa, they're going to overstay for like a month or a couple months, which is not right. And like y'all should see in the expat groups, when an American admits that they did that, we talk mad shit to them. We're not like having sympathy for them, or we're not like, oh, well, you shouldn't get deported, or you shouldn't have to pay fines. We're not talking about the government for enforcing immigration laws against them. No, we're telling them, hey, you should leave, or you should have like applied for a different visa. You should have stayed legal. Like, we don't condone that type of behavior. So when an American citizen gets deported for any reason, you will never see us marching in the street. We just don't. We don't. Okay. So this is not a protest against illegal immigration. This is a protest against legal immigration. Another issue that they have is, it says aprende español, learn Spanish, respect our culture, and pay taxes. Wow, the irony. The irony. Because again, there are whole cities in the United States where you can go and never have to learn how to speak English, which, I mean, I kind of feel like that's sad. You should want to, but I don't care enough to make a big deal about it. I mean, but I don't know. I guess if you never have to, then you never will. For example, you can live in a place like Miami or Dallas and never have to speak English. As a matter of fact, we've been very catering, and we will write stuff in our schools and in our government offices. We will write a lot of stuff in Spanish and English versions. You don't see that here in Colombia, and you don't see that in many places in Mexico. So again, it's just kind of like the irony of it all. Now, I will say that these people here that are saying this are not people who are coming to the United States and behaving that way. So let's be fair. Let's be objective here. With the paid taxes thing, again, if they're there on a nomad visa for less than 6 months, they don't have to pay taxes. And that's standard for most countries. Most countries only make you tax liable if you're there for more than half the year, including the United States. So it's a two-way street, baby. So what are we talking about here? And in all countries, people who make a certain amount of money have access to tax loopholes, including people who legally immigrate from Mexico and live in the United States and have businesses. They're able to take advantage of tax loopholes. I do understand them saying, because again, I have met American citizens here in Colombia. Y'all know I live like very locally. I'm like the only immigrant from America in my neighborhood. I don't see any other like American immigrants here. Um, but if you go like you cross like the frontera to El Poblado, like that is where all the gringos are or American citizens are. And yes, I have met many who have been here who don't speak Spanish at all, or they only hang out with other Americans. So they've kind of created their own ethnic enclaves, which I mean, a part of me understands that, especially like if you don't speak English. And another thing, speak Spanish. And another thing, some people just don't speak Spanish well. They can't roll their R's. You know, I'm comfortable living this way because I knew how to speak Spanish before I came here, you know. So, but I get people saying respect the culture, learn the language. That's a fair ask. That's not asking too much. Wow, that's nuts. What's nuts? Tell me. Okay, let's continue. Oh no, I lost my. Here we go. No, that's not it. Hold on. No. How did I lose my spot? Here we go. No. Here we go. Sorry, y'all.
Learn Spanish, respect our culture, pay effing taxes. Spanish is spoken here. Gringo, I want you to go back to your country, not your home. Pay taxes, learn Spanish, respect my culture. Have Americans in Mexico tried shutting down highways? I hear
No.
that one's effective.
Americans don't do that. When Americans go to abroad, we don't do any of that. You will never see an American walking down the street waving an American flag. As a matter of fact, most of the Americans that I meet who move here, not all, they are very liberal in mindset. So I find them being very, very apologetic. Like I had to give, especially like the white Americans, I had to give like one girl a pep talk because she was like, I feel so bad because I'm coming here and I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, I mean, but that's being done in our country too. So what do you feel bad about? And she was like thinking about it, and she was like, you know what? You're right. And I'm like, yeah, what do you feel bad about? You're very respectful. You learn the language. Um, you pay your way here. You're not getting any government handouts. So is there for you to feel bad about? See, I don't play these games with people that try to shame me because and I'm going to explain it as we continue, because when they get an opportunity to get an economic advantage, then they do, right? The United States sends foreign aid to Mexico, and not only that, just in remittances alone that are being made on US dollars, there is more money sent in remittances than Mexico's government pays in social welfare program. There is like $64 billion in remittances are sent to Mexico. That's money that's not being generated in the United States economy. It's leaving our economy and flowing into Mexico. And the Mexican government only pays a little over $30 billion for social welfare programs. So, what are we supposed to feel bad about? Especially if you're doing things legal. Now, if you're in Mexico illegally, then you need to leave. You know, fair is fair. But if we're doing things legally, I absolutely do not care.
Or burning the Mexican flag? Or starting cars on fire? Come on, guys, the blueprint for success has already been laid out. No human is illegal on stolen land.
This is another argument.
We are not going anywhere. Our family is not going anywhere. And we will stand up against any injustice that comes towards our community and other communities as well.
You would never see an illegal American on the streets. Matter of fact, they wouldn't let it happen. The police would take them right away. This would never happen here in Colombia. I promise you. Like, we're way too afraid to do something like this here. And nobody's going to have any sympathy for you if you do that here.
If the Americans in Mexico just fly a lot of American flags and be as disruptive as possible,
Never.
I'm sure the Mexican government and its people will have sympathy for you.
People from an immigrant background are very worried right now, and they need the most help right now.
I don't think it's right. I'm not okay with that. You know, a lot of people they're going after, they're here for a chance.
I think that's
They're here to support a
another
system that
thing
doesn't.
that's very disrespectful. So his sign said, America es nada sin migrantes, which basically means America is nothing without migrants. I actually think that's a very disrespectful thing to say. Honestly, and it is very disrespectful. That's just as disrespectful as, like, if American citizens who come and invest in the economy in Mexico say, y'all aren't anything without our money coming, because we basically stimulate a lot of the economy. No, you stimulate a lot of the economy, but you don't stimulate it all. And I'm willing to acknowledge contributions that immigrants, both legal and illegal, have made to the United States, right? Especially when we're talking about people who do things the right way. But like, America has a very long history, and we have a very diverse population. And America has been built on the backs of many different people, right? That were born in the United States. The South was built on the backs of slavery. Like, let's not act like without migrants, America would fall into complete collapse or disarray. No, all these companies have to do is pay people a livable wage, and people in the United States want to work. As a matter of fact, if they paid a livable wage, people in the United States might start having more kids. They're not having kids anymore because there are no jobs, and the jobs that are available don't want to pay livable wages. It just is what it is. Right? But to say that we're nothing, considering our long history, nothing without migrants, as if we're not standing on the shoulders of giants, let's be for real. That is very disrespectful. And that's what I say. I don't let people disrespect me because they try to guilt trip me. Matter of fact, I really do love the culture of Colombia. I do. I respect this culture. Like, I try my best to be respectful. But I'm also not one of those Americans who left the United States because I hate my country. There were certain things that I wanted, that I was needing in my social life culturally. And then the cost of living just got so high. I'm from the South. So unlike people in the East and people in the West and people in the North, there was nowhere cheaper for me to go, right? The cost of living just got so high. So I said, let me move somewhere where phenotypically I blend in with the people and where I don't have to relearn a language, right? So I chose to come to Colombia, right? But I don't hate America. Love the fact that you're looking out and you're getting to show us all of these videos. Okay, yeah, I got you. Thank you. You are truly a teacher, and I love it. Oh, thank you, J1. I appreciate it. So I don't let people, though, in my face disrespect my culture because I don't disrespect theirs. So I do meet a lot of Americans who will like talk mad shit about the United States with Colombians thinking that they're getting brownie points. And it's like, no, you're not getting brownie points. You're getting disrespected, right? Especially considering the fact that the United States, for years and years and years now, has always been open to immigration of some sort, and that thousands of people immigrate to the United States every year. I'm not going to let you disrespect my country when my country provides so many opportunities. The only reason why I'm able to live abroad is because I was able to get a job with the company overseas. It's not an American company, but a prerequisite is that I be American to work there. The prerequisite is that I have a degree from an American university to work there, right? So I was talking to a Colombian man, and he was saying how, in the United States, people are lazy. And I was like, no, they're not. What? No, they're not. Who told you that? No, they're not. And you don't realize just how hard Americans work until you leave the United States. We've always heard the narrative that like immigrants, people from other culture work harder than us because yes, immigrants who come to the United States are willing to work like 2 and 3 jobs, but like go back to their country of origin and see just how much people will work and you will realize the average American citizen outworks people across many nations. We don't have things like siestas. Even in China, for their national holiday, people get 7 days off of work. We don't have not one national holiday or any holiday where we get a 7-day break. The only people who get those type of breaks are students and teachers. And teachers are a very small sector of the population. But if you come here to Colombia, like every other week, there's a holiday. And like I'm trying to get used to it because I'm so used to work and being on go and I got things to do and I'll wake up and have my whole day planned. And it's like, no, nothing's open. Everybody is on holiday. Right. So people have categorized us as lazy because they hear what other immigrants that come to the United States say. And I'm like, no, if you have to compare the average American worker to the average worker in a Latin American country, Americans just work more. They're in the office more. They're spending more hours a day working. They don't have as many vacation days or holidays. So I explained this to the man, and I can tell he kind of got upset that I didn't go along with what he was saying. Like he wanted me to agree with him that Americans are lazy, but like, no, I'm not going to do that. What are you talking about? Then he tried to say Americans are spoiled. No, there are a lot of, in some ways, depending on how you grew up, yes. But I explained to him, no, there are a lot of poor Americans too. The difference is our bottom is better than their bottom. I'll say that. So, like, even a poor American can live in an apartment with hot water versus a Colombian that is poor or even like lower middle class might not have hot water in their apartment. Okay, let me continue with this video.
For them.
You might even get some Mexican liberal boomers to sing some songs for you.
Put your finger on your ear, on your ear. Pay attention, we're the guardrails now.
Mexico City is home. I expect to be here forever.
I'll stay in Mexico for as long as y'all will have me.
Now, I'm going to show y'all another video. This is actually nothing new. Wait, before I go to that other video, there were also some protests recently not recently, but 6 years ago in Tijuana. I'm going to show y'all. So this had nothing to do with American immigrants. It actually had everything to do with immigrants from other Latin American countries like Honduras. Give me 1 second. Guys, if y'all are just now coming in, please hit the like button and share if you care. That helps people know that I'm on live. Y'all know I'm trying to grow my channel. Okay, so this was 6 years ago. So this is nothing new. Don't think because of Donald Trump, these protests are just now starting, that this is reactionary. Because I've seen a lot of liberals who are anti-American respond to the protests I just showed you. And it's like, they have every right because what we're doing to their people. And it's like, no, Mexico has been anti-immigration in any form, whether it's been, and I say people, not necessarily the government, but people in any form, they've been doing these protests. Oh, they're just bringing their problems. They're ungrateful. They don't appreciate the help. They're just bringing their problems. Again, this is in Tijuana, Mexico. And they're talking about other Central Americans. Central Americans that the United States is now being demonized for no longer taking them in, even though legally we accept thousands of people from Central America every year and will continue to take in legal immigrants. But because we don't want to accept illegal immigrants anymore, we're the bad guy. Okay. Y'all, I can't make this up. I can't make this up. Y'all, this is word for word, verbatim, what the MAGA movement has been saying. Yet MAGA is racist. Yet American citizens are racist. Yet Mexico and their president are trying to make MAGA wrong and Donald Trump wrong. And here we are in Mexico. And it's like the exact same rhetoric. Wow. Wow. Okay. Let's continue.
Been turned into a makeshift shelter for the migrants. A police barrier.
I personally have never seen ever, like even during like the Tea Party movement, I've never seen the right en masse behave like this. Never. You know, the right will state their opinions. They might even do a little protest, but they don't go out in public and show their ass over illegal immigration. No, they don't. They really don't. That's more so the left that wants to act the fool and break things and ram into ICE cars and things like that when they get upset. Have you had like right wing lone wolves do certain things? Yes, I have seen that, but like you couldn't get 100 white right wingers to get together and go bust up the businesses of immigrants. You just could, even if they were illegal, you could not find 100 right wingers to get together and just start busting out businesses, windows of businesses of even the illegal population in the United States. You will never see that. But I showed y'all how they were acting. Crazy that they literally have these people. See, the thing is, people try to make it seem like ICE is violent because ICE is simply catching people and detaining them and providing a place for them to stay until they go to their home country. In cases where their country is not accepting them back, places like Venezuela does not want to accept a lot of its people back. Why? Because they emptied out their prisons. Not all Venezuelans in the United States, legal or illegal, are criminals. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they know they sent a lot of bad apples our way. So their crime rate is going down. It went down drastically. So Venezuela is like, no, we don't want to accept, especially if they're a criminal. They're not accepting them back. So what is Donald Trump doing? Sending them to another country. But the narrative is that ICE is committing acts of violence against illegal immigrants. Meanwhile, in Mexico, these people are literally locked up fighting for their lives because these people were acting a fool.
Locals have thrown stones at the migrants several times. The attacks have frightened them.
We're in great danger. They come from
war. I could not even picture like the most racist of MAGA behaving this way. Honestly and truly. And I'm not saying MAGA is racist. What I'm saying is there again, you have to be honest. There is a very, very, very small faction of MAGA who might say something racist, you know, but for the majority of MAGA, it's all about the economics. But like, I didn't see us going to New York or even in Texas. I'm from a red state. I've never seen anything like this before. And we've lived with illegal immigration for decades now. And I've just never seen people come together and behave this way. Wow, that was really just, it's heartbreaking because, again, people have their reasons why they migrate. There are push pull factors. And I don't think anybody, whether they're illegal or not, should be worried about being in physical danger of being attacked by the local population. Take that up with your politicians. So the fact that America and MAGA is being painted as this big bad when people don't tolerate this and actually become extremely violent towards illegal immigrants in other countries, when that is not something that you see in the United States, to me, that is just mind boggling. I'm going to show another video. Give me 1 second. This was another protest that happened 6 years ago.
And still not be able to pay your bills.
Second.
Turn comments into
So that's another thing I want to point out. MAGA is saying we don't want illegal immigrants here, period. This woman is specifically calling out Hondurans. So people like to say that the United States is anti-Latino or like we don't like certain racial groups, when honestly and truly Donald Trump has been ICE has been deporting Chinese nationals, Indian nationals, nationals from Somalia, nationals from Haiti, all over the world. The problem is that it gets sensationalized when the United States deports Latinos because, first of all, the Latino population is like one of the biggest minorities in the United States. We are in North America. Mexico is literally, we share a border with Mexico. And South, then you have Central America and South America, and then there's the Caribbean right there by us. So naturally, our largest demographic of illegal immigrants is gonna be Latinos. Everybody else has to travel across the ocean to come to us. So yes, we have more illegal Latinos to deport, but that doesn't mean that everybody else is not getting deported for being illegal as well. It's just, this is the issue that politicians choose to focus on because they want to energize their Latino base, especially the Democrats, to get them to vote for them when it comes time for the elections, right? And I understand that's a great strategy, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the United States being anti-Latino. Again, there are whole cities in this country where you can go to, cities and states where you can go to and never have to learn how to speak English. That is how much we have allowed even legal immigration of the Latino community here. One second.
Leave no sale behind with the world's best converting checkout from Shopify. Say goodbye to abandoned carts.
Habrá gente que piense, pero no, señor, estoy en un acontecimiento natural.
Okay, so the lady said the locals believe some of the migrants are dangerous. So they're allowed to care about vetting and their safety. America, no. Okay. This says the protesters don't want tax dollars spent on humanitarian aid. Let me tell y'all something. Nobody spends more on humanitarian aid annually than the United States of America. Now, a lot of that money is money laundered, but the American taxpayer is spending the money. So these are pro-migrant activists clashing with anti-migrant activists.
De detención en los Estados Unidos. Que eso apareció.
So she's saying right now there are similar detention centers in the United States. Ma'am, you were in, okay. Why are you worried about what we got in the United States to try to control illegal immigration? Because at the end of the day, these people are not worried about being beat to a pulp on the street. So that's different. Girl, you are in danger right now. You are in literal danger. And you're worried about detention centers in the United States. Okay.
No. Que la paz esté contigo, amigo. Que la paz esté contigo. Bendiciones en tu camino.
So this one says, inmigrantes sí, ilegales no. So that is saying legal immigration, yes. Illegal immigration, no. Wow. Wow. Who else is saying that? Wow. Okay.
¡Los queremos!
It's just so interesting to me. It's so interesting to me. So here is Mexico's president. Here's her response to the LA clashes that began a couple weeks ago.
Con la protección y defensa de los derechos humanos.
Her name is Claudia Sheinbaum. That sounds. I wonder, does she have some German ancestry? It's possible. Anyway. So she's talking about human rights. She's talking about human rights here. Now, mind you, I just showed y'all at the beginning of the live a protest that happened last week. And there were other videos that I saw of them like hitting white Americans that were there. They were busting out the windows of their businesses. So, like, ma'am, keep the same energy when we're talking about human rights here.
Humanos de los mexicanos en el exterior, independientemente de su situación migratoria. En este sentido, hacemos un llamado respetuoso, pero firme, a las autoridades estadounidenses para que todos los procedimientos migratorios se realicen con apego al debido proceso en un marco de respeto a la dignidad humana y al Estado de Derecho. No estamos de acuerdo con las acciones violentas como forma de protesta.
So basically, she's saying regardless of a Mexican citizen's status, that they should be given due process. That's what she's saying. They should be given due process, and she's denouncing the violence at the protest. But where were the police when I showed y'all the videos of them busting out windows of restaurants owned by American citizens? Where was the police? Where was she at to send in some type of national force to stop that? There was not a police in sight.
La quema de patrullas parece más un acto de provocación que de resistencia. Debe quedar claro, condenamos la violencia, venga de donde venga. Llamamos a la comunidad mexicana a actuar de manera pacífica y no caer en provocaciones. El gobierno.
So she's saying that the Mexican community should be peaceful. I'm glad that she said that. But again, within your own borders, when you had the opportunity to send some help, you didn't send any help. There was not a police officer in sight. And again, that's why I say people come to the United States and like they think it should be like a free for all, that they should be able to do the same things that they do in their countries. And Donald Trump is like, no, I'm not having it. Okay, guys, if you're just now coming in, please hit the like button. I also want to, I'm going to go to TikTok. Now, I've explained to this before. I've explained this before, but I'll explain it again. Um, a lot of Americans are racist. I'm just being honest. And just stick with me. Just hear me out. You know, um, a lot of Americans feel like white Americans are racist, and it's okay for us to be openly and blatantly racist against white Americans for the simple fact that we are darker skinned or we are minorities, and our ancestors have endured certain things that it should be a free for all, and that we should just be able to disrespect white Americans every which way, and they shouldn't be able to say anything about it, right? To me, that is weird behavior, right? I don't think anybody should put up with disrespect. Furthermore, in my opinion, racism is a disease. Why is it a disease? Because if you view everything through the lens of race, then you can't see people as individuals. You can't see anybody objectively. Okay. So, what does that look like? That looks like minorities in America constantly calling white people colonizers. Colonizer this, colonizer that. And then anytime you see a white person in America with any type of material wealth or success, you attribute that to colonization and you assume that they had generational wealth. Then when that person tries to explain to you, actually, no, I grew up in poverty. Actually, no, my family immigrated here after the colonial era, or my family immigrated here like during the 1930s and they never owned slaves or they didn't have anything to do with slavery, right? People don't want to hear that. We just see white skin and say this person's family was a slave owner, or because they're white, they directly benefit from slavery or something like that. Which the reality is, if you're an American citizen, even a Black American citizen, you benefit from this country being built up from slaves, indentured servants, and everybody, Chinese immigrants putting the railroads together. We all collectively benefit from the work that came before us. I don't care what you say. Yes, some people have been able to accumulate wealth longer due to their status. But then if you go somewhere like the North, there are Black families in the North that were freed men who were able to accumulate wealth as well. So everybody's situation is different. And the problem with racism is that it allows you to freely make assumptions about people in their lives and hate them because of the assumptions that you make, right? So the reason why I brought this up is because a lot of this, again, when we go back to a lot of the hypocrisy here, a lot of the hypocrisy as to why a lot of people in Latin America feel like they should be able to come to the United States legally or illegally and reap the benefits of the United States, and that it's fair if we don't come to their country and reap the benefits. We should stay in our country and they should be able to come to our country and get all the benefits, or they should be able to stay in their country and get all the remittances. The reason why they feel that way is because they feel like white people are colonizers and and because of the United States proximity to them and our power. Let's be clear, the power that the United States have, people feel like we owe them something. When let's be clear, let's be very clear. A lot of these countries over here in Latin America were colonies or countries before the United States became its own. The United States started off as 13 small colonies. When you talk about Latin America, right, Latin America had been colonized as early as the 1400s, and they had years of advantage. Spain used to be a huge empire over here. These countries had a huge head start. So if they wanted to become a world power, or if they wanted to become a power to be reckoned with in the Americas, they had a head start over the United States, right? The United States, whether you agree with it or not, had a policy of manifest destiny. So it was very much on purpose and intentional for the United States to grow from 13 colonies that stretched from sea to shining sea. And yes, some bad things happened along the way. Yes, natives had their lands taken. Yes, this country benefited from slavery. Yes, this country benefited from paying low wages to immigrants, right? But at the end of the day, the people, the leaders of this country were willing to do what they felt was necessary and took certain advantages and opportunities that they felt like were necessary for the United States to become a world power. So for people to be pissed off with the United States and not their own government about their situation, or about them feeling like they don't have as much power as the United States, I feel like you need to take that up with your government. I feel like you need to take that up with your forefathers. I feel like you need to take that up with your past administrators. Don't be upset with the United States because they just played their cards better than the people of your country. And people might be upset. They might say that sounds wrong, but it just is what it is. Now we're trying to move past that. We don't have slavery anymore. You have MAGA who's trying to get us from not depending on low-wage labor. But people feel like just because you're an American that you owe them something. And this is something that I had to explain. I had a friend. We're no longer friends, but I had a friend. And I remember when I first came to Colombia, one of the very first things that she said to me was, I didn't come to Colombia. She's a Black woman. And mind you, most of my friends are Black women. I love Black women. So this is not to talk bad about Black women at all. I'm talking about this woman, okay, this particular woman. So she was like, I didn't come to Colombia to be around white people. Like, she just was so like, I don't want to be around white people. And it's like, why do you even care about that? Like, we're in a whole nother country. She would constantly talk about racism and things like that. She would say very rude things when we were in the company of other white immigrants from the United States here. She would just say things and felt like I just have a right to say them because I'm Black. So one day she got back the hate that she was giving. Guys, I'm trying to check hold on. Is nobody like commenting? Hold on. I'm trying to like refresh the comments. I don't know if it's not working. Give me a second. Okay, anyways, guys, please hit the like button. So anyways, she got back the hate that she gives one day. So she was around a Colombian woman, and the Colombian woman said in her face, I don't like Americans. So my friend, who is an African American, got offended, and she was like, you're not talking about me. You're talking about white Americans. It's white Americans that you don't like. And I'm not like a white American. And we were slaves. And it's like, girl, no, she said what she meant. When she said she doesn't like Americans, she was talking about you too, girl. She don't care about the fact that you're Black. She don't care about the fact that your ancestors, not you, that your ancestors endured slavery. What she doesn't like is the fact that you can come here and your dollar stretches, that you come here and you automatically have an economic boost. So you trying to make a distinction between cultures is irrelevant because it has nothing to do with the distinction in culture. It has everything to do with plain old jealousy as old as Cain and Abel. Because if you were poorer than her, she wouldn't give a damn. So then I told the girl who was my friend at the time, I was like, and we do have a lot in common with white Americans. No, I don't. I don't have anything in common with it. Yes, you do. People can see it on you. We have certain things that we do as Americans culturally. For example, if you go to most countries around the world, people will say Americans are loud. They'll say that we're like louder than most people. That is something common. Another thing they'll say is that we are And that's good or bad depending on who you are. Another thing they'll say is that we're more wasteful. We're more likely to leave like food on a plate or order or buy things that we don't need. We have a consumer culture. A lot of the times we listen to the same music, we watch the same television shows. So a lot of the times it doesn't have anything to do with race as to why somebody doesn't like you. The real issue is an economic issue, and the racism is secondary. Hey, what's up, D Mally? I guess that's what they mean when they say black fatigue. Oh, yeah, like, and who wouldn't be fatigued by that? The stuff she used to do, the stuff that she used to say that was so disrespectful, and you expect people to sit there and put up with it and listen to it? All because you feel a sense of entitlement. And it's the same sense of entitlement that people from the United States feel. They feel like the assumptions that they make about us just because we're American. They feel like we owe them something. They feel like we should just give and give and give and give and give and give and not care about our own selves. They feel like we should just pretend we don't have our own struggles or we don't have our own poor people. That's why, again, when Americans say, hey, this is not right. We can't handle all these illegal immigrants. Now, even though we take in thousands of legal immigrants per year and give out so much humanitarian aid, now American people are evil and the bad people. Okay. When we see, I showed y'all the protests, we see how a lot of these people act in their own country over illegal immigration. They're not having it. She learned that day, outside of the U.S., we are gringos, period. Period. The hate that you give here, Black Americans, the hate that you give white Americans in the United States because you look at somebody and you've learned all these things about history and you make an assumption about them without talking to them and getting to know their lives. The hate that you give them is the same hate you will give when you leave the United States. The same sense of entitlement, oh, somebody owes you this, and that. People will look at you as a Black American and not give a damn if they rob you, would clean out your accounts. Because in their mind, you have more than them, so you owe me. They don't care. You can explain to them, oh, yeah, well, we had slavery. They don't care. They have slavery in their country. They had slavery in their country. Matter of fact, I'm going to keep it all the way 1,000 with you. A lot of them kind of feel the way that in their country, Black people are beneath them. But when they come to the United States, you automatically have because you're an American citizen, you've been working longer than them. You've had the benefits of being an American citizen. They're looking at you like, well, in my country, you would be nothing. And they come to the United States and they see, dang, you're a doctor, or you're a lawyer, or you can work in middle management, or you can be a CEO. See, we like to paint America as just this extremely racist country. But there are a lot of places in Latin America where you don't see any Black people in positions of authority, where at least in the United States, you have an opportunity. That's why you have people like Anna Navarro who feel away. You have a lot of these people who are speaking up, and why aren't Black Americans saying anything? And it's like, ma'am, we're like, why would Black Americans say anything about illegal immigrants being deported? Our families have been here for generations and generations and generations. Why would Black Americans say anything? It's because a lot of them really feel away about your status in the United States. It's plain old jealousy, as old as Cain and Abel. Well, other countries don't have the resources America and Canada has. I mean, but there are poor, that's what I'm saying. You can say other countries don't have the same resources. Everybody has to learn to work with what they got. And yeah, that's true. Like I said, the bottom in the United States is a little bit different. For example, if you're poor in the United States and you live in a roach-infested one-bedroom apartment, chances are you still have hot water, right? But that doesn't mean that you have access to quality education. That doesn't mean that you will have access to a good job. That doesn't mean that you'll be able to afford to go to college. So yeah, there's more opportunity in the United States, but you still have to do the work. And a lot of that work still has to meet luck. And we have people who are working class Americans who are busting their ass every day and still cannot afford to pay the bills in their house. And they work hard. They might work 2 jobs. So are we supposed to act like that doesn't exist? Is that person supposed to assume the label and the identity of colonizer? Which is crazy because we're not even the country that colonize. I'm like, man, y'all need to take that up with the Spanish and the Portuguese. We just happen to be a bigger country than y'all. And again, like I said earlier before you came on, Jamal, I really can't feel bad about that because a lot of these countries had a head start on us. A lot of those lands were conquered before the United States was even 13 colonies. They had a couple of centuries on us. So take that up with your administrators. America is an extremely racist country. I think you think that until you go outside of the United States. Go outside of the United States and go spend an extended amount of time. And then let me know, like you got to have other things to compare it to. You got to have other things to compare it to. If you are a Black American, the United States is one of the best places in the world that you can be. Matter of fact, you have more opportunity in the United States as a Black American than what you would have than what a Black person would have being in Africa. We just don't see it because of indoctrination. Our people were enslaved all over the world, including by other Africans. If you know who we are and you read your Bible, you know what's up. Okay, but I'm talking about today. In 2025. If you are a Black American, I'm talking about an unambiguously, phenotypically looking Black American. Because my experience, I'm gonna be honest, my experience here in Latin America is a lot different because I am like here I'm neither here nor there. You know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't have the same experience as a Black American. My Black American friends who come here to Colombia have a way different experience than what I have. I blend here, right? But like if you are a Black American, you have way more opportunity in the United States than what you would have in Eastern Europe, than what you would have in many countries in Latin America, unless you were coming, like if you were Black and you were born down there. Now coming with your dollars is completely different. But even then, you'll have certain type of experiences. Like I'm not even gonna hold you. I've seen a couple times where a Black person or a Black woman have gotten into it with a Colombian down here and they get called an ugly Black person. And I'm like, whoa. And just casually, and nobody says anything about it. I don't see I can walk around my neighborhood and the only job that I see Black people doing here is cooking in the kitchen. If I walked around this entire block, I could walk around my entire neighborhood for like an hour and not see a Black person that is a manager of anything, a doctor, got a lawyer's office, anything. You stand out like more than anybody else. We stand out like more than anybody else. Mm-hmm. Hi, your boy, Roy Boy. Okay, you look Latina. Yeah, yes, which is honestly and truly one of the reasons why I decided to come here, because I would have blendability. But I also can tell you that if I was actually a phenotypically full blood Black person with darker features and kinkier hair, you know, a lot of my Black friends tell me that people here just like will stare at them, you know, like, or people will like feel away because they coming down here with some money. And again, I love Colombia. The people here have been very kind to me. I've never experienced any type of racism here. The men here love the way I look. So like in terms of like socially, you know, I'm winning here. And again, I don't live around other Americans. Colombia is a Black country, not really. There are parts of the country like on the coast or Cali or Choco where you will find a very huge Black population, but like for example, like here in Medellin, people are more so mixed, and you'll see like people might have a percentage of Black in them, like 8% Black here in this area, but like you see more European and indigenous features here where I live. It just depends. Most of the slavery here in Colombia happened along the coastline. So that's where you will see the Black people. It's just like the United States, y'all. It's just like the United States where you have different races of people and people that look differently. Not everybody here is Black. Not everybody here is Europe. Not everybody here is mixed with Black. Not everybody here is mixed with European. There are some people who are completely indigenous. Most people here tend to be a mix of European, indigenous, and Black. Who are the big money guys in Colombia? The cartel, of course. Mariah, you have an opportunity to mold a good reputation for Americans in your new community. Yeah, I guess I do have the opportunity to do that. The problem is I don't necessarily know if so I blend in with the culture, and that's another thing. So I feel like I'd have more of an opportunity to do that if I was like a white person. And there are really good expats here. There are, you know, you do have those that don't want to learn English, but there are really good expats here. But like, I think because of my skin color and the fact that like people see me as a gringa, but at the same time, because I look more like them, I think a lot of the times they might forget. You understand? I don't necessarily know if I'm like the best person. Okay, so anyway, there was this girl who was on Instagram. I'm going to bring up her page. And this is another reason why I brought up the whole like the racism thing is pointless. It really is. And that's why a lot of minorities, they need to leave this, and this is not just Black people I'm talking about now. A lot of minorities who have never grew up out of the United States or never left the United States, y'all need to like leave and go live somewhere else and get a reality check about how the world views you. So there was this girl who basically she was born in Mexico, but her parents took her to the United States, and she moved back to Mexico and was working for, she said she was working for Mexican pesos, but I doubt it. Like it sounded like she wanted to help other Mexican Americans settle there, and it's like, girl, are you doing this for free or are they paying you some money to do this, right? So she spends a lot of time on her page being extremely racist. And I said something to her about that, right? I was like, girl, she was talking about colonizers and being racist. And I told her, you know, that's not right, you know, and she's all talking about colonizers, this. And a lot of times when Latinos start talking like that, colonizers, I be like, bruh, you're mixed though. I don't understand. Like, I guess I do kind of understand that because you want to identify with your minority group. I guess I used to kind of do this. You want to identify with your minority side so that you're not viewed or hated like white people are, right? Or you're not blamed for other people's problems like white people are. So, for example, for those of y'all who don't know, I am mixed. I'm biracial. I'm not Latina. My mom is Black. She's an African American, fully Black, and my father is white. Okay. And his family came to the United States during the Industrial Revolution. They came from Germany, you know. So anyway, at one point I did kind of used to kind of like tend to my black side more. Part of that was because black people feel like you don't like black people if you don't reject your white side. And another reason why I did that was because it helped me feel better about myself. Like, who wants to be white? White people are this is X, Y, Z, and the third. Now I kind of like, I don't care. I acknowledge both of my sides, but how people classify me or identify me is how they identify me. I know who I am on the inside, and I feel like that's really the only thing that matters, right? But I see this a lot with Latinos, where they will call white people colonizers, and I'm like, but aren't you, like, especially ones who are clearly mixed with European? I'm like, aren't you mixed? Like, take a DNA test. So which part of you is good and which part of you is bad? Is the indigenous side good and the white part bad? Like, how do you feel about yourself when you look in the mirror? You know, so it's like you can't call white people colonizers when you're a product. And they're like, well, I'm a product of colonization. Yeah, but you still have that DNA in you, though. So you're going to have to come to terms with that. Then the argument is like, yeah, but it's because white people were like graping our ancestors. And it's like, no. You're not going to do that. You can't try that with me. Right? Because a lot of these relationships were consensual. A lot of the times it was a situation where you might have a woman that is indigenous and she sees an opportunity to better her station in life. So she accepts the advances of a white. Not all of it was rape, is what I'm trying to say. Furthermore, don't act like I don't know what mejor la raza is. So in Latin America, for generations, they have had a policy of marrying and dating white or lighter. So this is ingrained into the culture that you're supposed to better your race by marrying or dating white. So no, you cannot claim colonization. you cannot. You cannot claim colonization and hate white people when the majority of y'all are biracial at the very least. There's a part of you that is indigenous, and there is a part of you that came here as immigrants or colonizers or whatever you want to call it. You're gonna have to accept that and reconcile that. You feel me? Some of it was, a lot of it was prostitution. Black women in America today, especially the professional HBCUs, are the most racist. Outside of America and Canada, the next best, I see racism like, I wouldn't say that's Black Americans that are the most racist. I wouldn't say Black American women are the most racist. I'm starting to see like you see this in a lot of areas in America. Outside of America and Canada, the next best place to be Black is Brazil. Of those of us who are not African. Okay, so I'm gonna show y'all. So this girl, when I told her that, when I brought up the point that y'all are like mixed race, she's gonna tell me. She said, your white side is showing. To which I responded, your racist side is showing. Like, ma'am. So I'm going to go to this girl's page. And mind you, I told her, like, she came out with these videos, but like, I told her, girl, you're over here being racist. But the fact of the matter is, you being a Mexican who grew up in the United States, you are seen as a gringa too. Because it's not about race. It's about people feeling like you had better opportunities than them. So the same hate that you give white Americans is the same hate that you were going to get back. I told her this, no lie. Now, look at what she posted. I want to say yesterday or the day before yesterday. Here she goes. Okay, so Her title on Instagram to this reel is, "Am I a Mexican gentrifier?" Okay, let's see what she says. Mind you, her name is Karina Life in Mexico.
Mexican born citizens coming back to the homeland, gentrifiers too. Here I am crying on the internet again. Puro llorar y llorar. It's really just been heavy on my heart, the topic of gentrification, honestly. I'm only going to share my perspective.
Ma'am, why are you crying? Because you have no problem disrespecting other people who are going to Mexico to try to better their life. You have no problem disrespecting them and calling them gentrifiers because of the color of their skin, and you don't even know them like that. But when it's done to you, you want to cry and your feelings are hurt. Make it make sense. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
I was born in Mexico City to indigenous parents, and at 3 months old, I was brought to the US. I grew up in the Phoenix, Arizona area my whole life. By no choice of my own. I was a baby. My parents did what they had to do at that point in time to provide us a good life. And I'm forever grateful for that. But now, fast forward 30 plus years later, many of us are on the boat of wanting to come back to our homeland, wanting to come back and reconnect with our roots. And I think I was a little naive to think that we would be welcomed by our people.
You were, because your problem is you think of everything in terms of race and not basic economics. What fuels racism is basic economics. What fuels racism is jealousy. What fuels racism is somebody seeing that another person has better opportunities or has access to wealth or money that they don't like, and they want to attribute that to their wealth, their race. I'm sorry. They want to attribute that to their race. So racism is just the excuse for somebody feeling jealous that somebody is doing better than them economically. So yes, you were naive because you don't understand human nature. You want to critical race theory yourself into understanding what's really simple. And it's that it comes down to basic economics, sis.
With open arms. In my fantasy, it was like, bienvenidos a casa, Karina. Aquí estamos felices que regresaste aquí a tu país y con mucho gusto te vamos a ayudar. I was naive to believe that.
This is the same feeling that a lot of like Black Americans have who talk about their experiences when they return to Africa. And again, there are many countries in Africa. Not everybody has a bad experience, but many will talk about how they expected to go to Africa and people will be like, "Oh, my Black people, you're home." And it's like, yeah, everybody's Black in Africa. Nobody cares. Well, the majority of people are Black in Africa. Nobody cares. It's more tribalism. They don't see you as having a connection to their culture. Furthermore, they see you as an American citizen first. Forget about your race. So yeah, boo, you can get scammed too. You can get scammed too. So a lot of them are getting their feelings hurt when they're going to Africa and people are seeing them as a dollar sign or trying to run scams on them because they thought that when they went to Africa, it would be all about race. When no, boo, this is a matter of simple and basic economics. Okay.
Now, a lot of people like us are facing hate from the locals, from people who were born and lived here in Mexico their whole lives. And they call us pochos, they call us gringos.
Ma'am, you call people colonizers. You call people colonizers and gentrifiers on a regular basis. See, when you call people names, it's okay. But you're sitting on this here internet crying because people are calling you names. Again, the hate that you give will always come back to you.
They call us Americanos, that we need to go
What's wrong with being called an American, girl?
go back to the US, that's where we belong, and stay over there, that we are gentrifiers, that we
Oh, somebody called you a gentrifier. Heaven forbid.
Are the white man's best friends, and every name under the sun I've been called. And I will say that I've only ever gotten hate online, never in person.
You know what? I will say this. That is normally how it is. Like, honestly, Colombians are a little different. So I could never see like Colombians, at least here in Medellin, doing like a protest like what they were doing in Mexico against legal immigration. Or illegal immigration, because they have illegal immigration here in Colombia. A lot of Venezuelans come over here illegally, and some are legal. And the way they talk about these Venezuelans over here, but what I will say is, in person, they are very, very nice and kind and accepting to you, you know?
And
most of the hate that you are going to get is online for people who are not bold enough to say these things to your face.
And I can lie and say that it doesn't hurt me, that I'm just gonna like brush it off my shoulder and it ain't no thing. But low key, it does hurt. I could understand the hate from white people, from the gringos that don't want me in the US, who think that that's their land and that I need to go back because I've physically been assaulted verbally, emotionally my whole life for being brown. And
girl, now you're just making up stuff. White Americans, or just Americans in general, it's not that they don't want you. Yes, are there racist white Americans? Yes, but that's not the majority. This, again, I'm bringing it back to basic economics. People don't like wage suppression. They don't like that jobs that they used to be able to do and make a living wage, they can no longer do. Or like whole sectors of the market have been cut out. And yes, there are some jobs that Americans don't want to do. Farming, I'll give that to you. Americans don't want to do farming. But like if you paid a livable wage, there are a lot of men who would do construction. Just like they do sanitation, just like they do our linemen, just like they do all these other manual labor, plumbing. There are a lot of men who if it pays enough money, they will go do it. If it can provide for their family, they can go do it. And that's the problem people have with illegal immigration. At least when it's legal, the employer has to pay you the same wage that they pay an American. But all of this making it just because you're brown, and I'm not saying nobody's ever said anything racist to her. I'm sure that's happened. But it's not as simple as that. Furthermore, she gives out the exact same racism. She just tried to insult me for being half white. So what are you crying about? You can take it, right? You give it, you can take it.
America. And are we, as Mexican born citizens, coming back to the homeland, gentrifiers too? Here I am crying on the internet again.
Okay, so she has a part 2 to this.
Was told to go back to Mexico my whole life. But now that I'm here and amongst my own people who look like me, for them to not accept me or not want me and just reject me, I'm not gonna lie, it hurts. It stings. But I'm also trying to come from a perspective that I know I have privilege having dual citizenship. I know that I have privilege speaking 2 languages. I know I have privilege that I can earn USD and Mexican pesos. So I'm trying to be empathetic and trying to be understanding and trying.
Girl, you don't have to be empathetic or understanding to people who disrespect you. And that's the problem. Once you disrespect me, once you feel like you can disrespect me, all empathy goes out the window. I don't give a damn. I have empathy as long as the respect is mutual. When you feel like you can disrespect me because you've made certain assumptions, or you can disrespect me just because I have more than you, that is when I get real disrespectful. And that's the problem. Not everybody is going to like you. People are going to find reasons in life to hate you. Whether it's that they feel like you've had a better opportunities in life because you look, some people will hate you just because you look better than them. Some people will hate you because you have more money than them or you have a better car. That's how people are hardwired. A lot of people are haters and they will find any reason to dislike you because they feel like you have an advantage in some area. Some people will hate you just because you're smarter than them. So when I recognize I'm dealing with that type of person, the respect and empathy goes out the window. First and foremost, I try to stay away from haters. But the disrespect that you give me is the disrespect that you're going to give back. Period. And I'm not going to feel like I have to grovel at your knees and tiptoe around your feelings just because I have a particular advantage over you. That's the problem with a lot of liberal white Americans and why things have gotten so out of hand in the United States and why people have a sense of entitlement or feel like, because it's easier to blame somebody for having more than you or having some type of advantage than you than trying to win in areas that you can win. And it really takes people saying, I don't got nothing for you when it comes to that. I'm not going to live on my knees to make you feel better. Jamal says, multicultural is not for every country, but this subject is getting silly, and all people need to put down stigmas while not ignoring clear-cut discrimination. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if it's clear-cut discrimination, I call it out every time. But you projecting something onto somebody is not the same as clear-cut discrimination. You making assumptions about people and being racist first, and then them reacting to the way that you came at them is not the same as clear-cut communication, clear-cut discrimination. And that's what I'm saying. You have this woman over here crying on the internet because people are calling her gentrifier, gringo, entitled, privileged. And it's like, man, that is how you come at people on the internet. I've seen her do it. That's how she came at me. And I went on the internet crying. When it's legal, you have to get all kinds of licenses and schooling. When it's slavery or migrants, interestingly, it doesn't require any of that. Oh, I get what you're saying. On the job training. Oh, yeah. Well, that was another thing, and I don't want to, but I'll take it back to even a lot of people don't understand that one aspect to why we even had a civil war is because a lot of people were like, and this is also what fueled a lot of hate towards African Americans. This is why I say racism is a symptom of people being upset over basic economics. You had a lot of white people who had to leave the South and move to the industrial North because there were no jobs in the South. The rich landowners would not give jobs to white men. Why? Why would I give you a job when I have people working the land for free? So now it becomes a matter of survival. And then when it becomes a matter of survival, people start thinking irrationally. Now it's you're an N-word. I'm going to hang you. It's, like you don't deserve to live. Now it becomes a matter of that when the real issue was a matter of basic economics. All that other stuff is secondary. Meant to say multiculturalism. Yeah, some societies aren't meant for multiculturalism. It's America is an experiment in multiculturalism. And that's why I will never let people say that America is the most racist country, because a lot of countries would not be able, the amount of immigration and cultural melting pot and people having to learn to live with other cultures and do that over generations and generations and centuries. America has done a damn good job. There are many other countries who haven't even begun to do that. There are many other countries who are just now experiencing immigration to their country, and they don't know how to handle it. That's right, Jamal. And it screws our illegal immigrants and U.S. citizens. It does. Alike, illegals get exploited and ruin the labor market. Yes. But even then, I say the anger should be put on these companies that are hiring them and exploiting them. Like, I'm not going to be upset and be racist towards anybody, no matter where they come from, because they were promised a better opportunity here. And we had these sanctuary cities in the last administration basically inviting people with open doors to come here. I'm not going to hate them because they saw an opportunity to better their station in life. Now, logically, I'm all for these deportations because we bit off more than what we can chew, and it's hurting the American worker. And I'm going to have more empathy for my countrymen than people who came across the border who were largely unvetted. And I'm not calling them all criminals, but the crime rate has spiked. It's went up amongst illegal immigrants, Americans up. Okay, it went up, and we can't handle any more problems. A legal immigration process helps level the playing field because at least you don't have to compete with somebody that's willing to race to the bottom. Federally, they have to be paid a minimum wage at the very least, just like your other American citizens. America and Canada are founded on multiculturalism and immigration. We are a unique land and nation. Definitely. And that's why I say people, really, American citizens, need to spend an extended amount of time out of the United States. Now, some people could say, well, if you feel that way about America, then why are you living in another country? I'll explain. I have absolutely no problem explaining that. I cannot afford to live in America. I'm just being honest. I can't afford. I mean, I could, but then I wouldn't have time to spend with my daughter. I'm a single parent. I'd be working all the time, and my daughter would just be, I would have no time with her. I can't afford to live in the United States. I don't mind saying that. I can't afford to. I can't afford to without great personal. If I live in the United States, I'd have to work so much. I'd have to work 2 or 3 jobs. I'd never have time to work out. I never have time to help my daughter with her schoolwork. She'd be falling behind in school. As she was when I was living, I had to come here so I could be able to homeschool and get her back on track. And I like being able to have some leisure time to go have a drink if I want to, or go enjoy a football game, luxuries of which I never had time to do when I lived in the United States. I'm just being honest. That doesn't mean I hate my country. My country is great for those of y'all who can afford it. America's great. If you can afford it, it's great. I also like Spanish. I will be honest. I prefer to speak Spanish above speaking English, even though English is my first language. I like speaking. I like hearing if I when I go back to the United States, like my mom, she lives in a neighborhood where it's like she lives in a predominantly white neighborhood, and like I was there and I was like, I've been here for like a month. I visited for a month. I visited her for a month in December, and I'm like, bruh, nobody speaks Spanish here. I don't hear any salsa music. Like, I was like losing my mind. I'm not upset at the illegals. I feel like a father watching someone else's children being abused. Yeah, it's true. They were being misused. That's why I say come in legally, and I can't support illegal immigration, as you shouldn't, because it's not good for anybody. And I've seen videos upon videos of those illegal immigrants who were like, I'm thinking about going home to my country because this is not what I thought it would be. See, they thought they were going to come into 1990s America, and you got 2020, 2021, 2023 post-pandemic America. That's what you got, where everybody's struggling. Nobody's safe. You are a gorgeous, educated, oh, thank you, an intelligent woman. I'm sure Toy could afford to live anywhere in the country doing whatever profession pays. I mean, the problem with me is that I like my solitude. So I like my solitude. I've never been ambitious enough to work in corporate America. I don't like being told what to do. So here I can kind of do my own thing more. I can do things that I like more. I'm not the type of woman who will keep boyfriends or a whole bunch of boyfriends so that they can pay my bills. Because honestly, I don't like talking to people that I don't genuinely enjoy. So, like, for example, I will never go on a date with a man that I don't genuinely like just so I can enjoy a nice meal. Like, I wouldn't be able to finish my food. I'd be disgusted. So, like, I've heard people say that. They'd be like, oh, you can have every bill paid. And yeah, I mean, but at what cost? What cost to self and peace? You know? I wish I could learn Spanish and French. You can get on Preply or something. I was cool with light illegal immigration for most of my life and never been this much of an issue to me. I think most of us were. I mean, I'm going to be honest, y'all. I've told y'all I am a conservative leaning independent, but for the majority of my life, I was raised to be a liberal. I grew up around a lot of illegal immigrants. They were people I went to school with. My first boyfriend was an illegal immigrant. My first boyfriend was an illegal immigrant. My first kiss came from an illegal immigrant. So like I grew up in the, I used to always go over to my friend's house who were illegal immigrants, and their grandmother would cook me some food. And I'm from Texas, so Mexican culture is just ingrained into the culture. I taught a lot of my students were illegal immigrants, and I taught them. It got to the point though, these past 4 years, made a lot of people change their mind to where it got so bad that we had to do something about it. And again, that's why I say a lot of this blame should be put on the Biden-Harris administration. It should. And again, I'm still to this day in support of those who had DACA protections should be able to keep their DACA protections. No new ones, but the ones who have been having it since it was instated, I feel like we should do something for them. We should give them a path to amnesty. They've been here this whole time, y'all. Might as well. A lot of them have degrees and stuff. You don't have to worry about them being lowballed on the wages. A lot of them are just as American as you and I. Came over here when they were 1 or 2 or 3. Right? I feel like we should do something for those people. You might disagree with it, but it is what it is. I feel like there's a middle of the road to be met here. But even let's be clear, even that is a generosity because most countries don't have paths to amnesty. So even that is a generosity that is not owed, but I feel like it's the right thing to do. Now, before I leave, I want to go to Cash Jordan's channel, and I want to talk about how basically Donald Trump has made it his mission to basically cause hell for Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. Like, they got on his bad side before he got into office and early on during this administration. We know he didn't like the issues and the problems that they gave him over the California wildfires. And it's been up. It's been up ever since then. And there are illegal immigrants all around this country. But I feel like because California has been so resistant and because of the statements that Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom have made to try to make these political statements and make it seem like they're in a position of power and authority, they have effectively made California a target when they would have been better off just kind of like being quiet or let ICE do their job. Because, Texas is almost as big of a state. We probably have close to the same amount of illegal immigrants as California, but he's not sending ICE into Texas. And part of the reason is because our governor has been cooperating with ICE. So we're not giving him problems. So it's like they make it harder on the people that they claim they're trying to protect by being super resistant. Okay, so this is Cash Jordan's
Why did
channel.
you cancel your Midjourney subscription? I found this hidden AI that does everything I want for a one-time cost.
The United States voluntarily.
So as President Trump keeps his promise to deport people in the country illegally, certain areas of America are becoming ghost towns. And while activists claim the tactics of
Hold on, let me address this comment. Some dude, I hired a dreamer. He's a good kid. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We got to do right by our dreamers. I hope they don't. But as of right now, dreamers are federally protected still. They are. They're not deporting dreamers right now. You can't, there are no new registrants. You cannot register newly as a dreamer. If you weren't doing it before, you can't do it now. But ultimately, I think it would be fair, and this is what I have said, the Democrats are picking the wrong battles. They need to zero in their focus right now, and they need to make dreamers, nobody else, dreamers, their top priority. That is what they need to be negotiating with Donald Trump. Like, we'll sign off on whatever you need for this, and that, for you to enforce immigration, and for that, we want a path to amnesty for dreamers. And I think the vast majority of MAGA, if it was packaged and sold to us correctly, and if he could get what other things he needed out of the deal, would go for that. Because again, especially us millennials, we grew up with dreamers. A lot of us have friends that are dreamers, or we work with dreamers, or we employ dreamers. Dreamers can work for livable wages. You could sell this to MAGA. You could. Because again, the vast majority of MAGA, it's about economics. It's not about race or anything like that.
ICE's deportation machine are brutal and inhumane. Proponents say criminal fugitives have no place in American society, even if removing them could cause the populations of some places to collapse.
It is now an official hashtag, disappeared in America, referring to immigrants scooped up by masked men who don't identify themselves, and then they are taken to undisclosed locations.
It's not kidnapping.
Can you believe this?
Homeland Security guidelines say that during detentions, agents should identify themselves, but not until, quote, it's practical and safe to do so, which they don't believe to be while surrounded with screaming onlookers.
I'm completely outraged. It's completely despicable what is happening, and we're just trying to do as much as possible to support the families that are right now in the crosshairs of this administration.
Are there more days coming ahead?
Absolutely. We're going to be out there every day.
What we're doing is we're really going after the criminal aliens, of which we have plenty to work with.
Perhaps the greatest allies.
Now, let me be clear, and I've seen Tom Homan and Donald Trump say this on several occasions. What the Democrats are upset about is that Donald Trump has made statements like this, and Tom Homan, we're going after the criminals first. They've always said first. And then it's always, I've seen them follow that up in several interviews. But make no mistake, if we run across you and you are an illegal immigrant, regardless of your criminal status, we are going to arrest you. They've said it several times. So they've said the criminals will be priority, but everybody, if you're in this country, you're fair game. I've heard Tom Homan say it several times. The problem is that people only watch chopped up clips and they don't go watch interviews in their entirety. So their opinions are completely reactionary and devoid of full context.
The self-deportation effort are the president's political opponents and those in the media. They are instilling the very same terror that they contend the Trump administration is creating.
If you look younger than your age, you might be one of us. If you've never broken a single bone.
So, EXPAT experts are saying the population of California is at risk of sinking because ICE is doing its job. And what nobody's talking about is this has huge implications not just for California, but for America as a whole, because it means we've been grossly misled as to how many people are actually living here illegally. And now that the Supreme Court has allowed the termination of birthright citizenship, entire swaths of the U.S. are bracing for impact, as there are an estimated extra 20 million people living here who illegally entered the country over the last 4 years, many owing tens of thousands of dollars to smugglers and gangs to sneak them in, where it was hoped they'd find loopholes in America's laws to live and work.
I'm glad he brought this up. I'm going to shout this to the rooftops. I talked about this in my last live, especially for all of you well-intentioned liberals who think that open borders is a great thing and like, no human is illegal on stolen land that we fought. Not only did the United States fight for, right, but also purchase. So, you know, once you buy it, it's no longer, when somebody buys it from you, it's no longer yours. Okay. There were so many nefarious things going on during that route to the southern border. Again, we had 500,000 kids go missing that we still have not found. We had kids being delivered en masse to businesses that we still haven't found. I'm going to shout that to the rooftops. Child trafficking exploded under the Biden-Harris administration. Not only that, a lot of people who don't have money and decide that they want to make that Star Trek voyage through the southern border, do you know who they sell when they don't have funds? They sell their children. They might bring a daughter or a son along, and they will sell their children to the cartel, or they will let several cartel members SA them on their way up here. See, this is something y'all don't want to talk about. This is why we need to disincentivize illegal immigration. It is a human rights issue. Y'all want to keep talking about human rights this, human rights that. An open border is definitely a human rights issue. I showed y'all, what was that, 3 or 4 lives ago, a transgender woman who was talking about how she was SA'd several times. I pulled the receipts on this is what I'm saying. These cartels will basically track these people. They know where their family lives in their country of origins. They have a lot of resources. They're heavily armed. And they say, you got to go to the United States and you got to work off a debt. So what do these people do? They get to the United States. They don't have a job. Now you robbing to pay the cartel. You might not even want to rob. Now you got to rob. You got to snatch purses. You got to snatch phones. You got to sell a little cootie cat. Whatever it is, so you can pay these people who are not playing with you.
Here forever. But that's not what's happening. High numbers of people are deciding to leave America voluntarily, and this has activists very alarmed, which is why they're now fighting tooth and nail to get ICE out of their cities, claiming that the Trump administration is disappearing people who get arrested on an immigration violation, when in reality, people without permission to stay here are held in dorm-like facilities with workout equipment and soccer fields, as well as signs reminding them they can leave America right now and get $1,000. But that brings us to the real reason activists are...
$1,000, that's enough money to go get set up in another country. They could find them a little apartment for a lot of them already have family they can go stay with. But if they don't, you can go find you a little apartment for like $300 your first month while you try to get a job. Food doesn't cost that much. $1,000 goes a long way. And honestly and truly, I'm still learning ways. I've been in Colombia for over a year now. I'm still learning ways to make a dollar stretch here. I'm still like, dang, I was spending too much money on this or spending too much money on that. You can get a pack of arepas here, which is like a really popular Colombian. It's kind of like a tortilla, but more thick that they eat here. And I'm like, oh, I understand why y'all eat these every day for breakfast, because you can get a pack of arepas for like less than 75 cents.
So upset about the Trump 2.0 agenda, lawless areas of our country could cease to function as they have for quite some time if their illegal populations decide to leave, which it turns out wouldn't be such a bad thing for the law-abiding residents and businesses who are left, as employment opportunities are sure to abound for legal workers, as criminal companies can no longer break federal laws and hire a workforce of underpaid fugitives. And while businesses that were hiring illegally complain it's not fair to take away all of their unlawful workers, some of them are now finding ways.
Oh, boo-hoo. You can't exploit people anymore. I don't care. Honestly and truly, why are they complaining so loud? They should be afraid to go to jail. They should be too afraid to go to prison for breaking the law to even speak up. It's the audacity for me. And that's why I say put them in jail. Put the business owners in jail. Especially if it's a situation where you have a large factory. I saw one factory where their entire workforce was illegal immigrants, and the owner tried to act like he didn't know any of them were illegal. Sir. Okay. California is overpopulated anyway. It's severely liberal, but I don't know how mad am I really. I mean, my whole thing is with these states, these liberal states, losing a huge amount of their population, it serves them right. Because guess what? This is what happens when you get too greedy, Democrats. Y'all try to open the borders and rig the game and send a lot of these illegal immigrants to swing states, or you try to not have any voter ID laws in a lot of these counties and states where these illegal immigrants are. You try to rig the game, and guess what? Now you're going to pay for it. Here are the consequences. Let's see what happens next election. And I feel like that's why Donald Trump is moving so fast in places like this, because midterms are coming up and they know that they need to thin the herd. Let me see what you're saying. Give me a second. How does he pay taxes without a legal green card or SSI? I know some illegal immigrants have like a TIN number. So some do. And then like if you're a dreamer, dreamers can pay taxes. But let's be clear. Let's be for real. Even if you have a TIN number or whatever the case may be, if it's a situation where you're getting paid cash under the table, do y'all honestly and truly believe those people are reporting the correct income on their income taxes? First of all, why would you? Like, I'm not even mad at them. If you're getting paid under the table, why would you go self-report? And Americans can be upset about that, but like, we are a country that literally went to war over a 2% tax on tea. So we don't even like paying taxes. So why would we expect them to like realistically be paying taxes when they can evade that process? Right? Especially if there's no documentation of them being in the country at all. I'm not even mad at them for that. I'm just keeping it real. I don't like paying taxes. But you can't be not paying taxes. And then in some cases, like what was going on in New York, you're getting all this government assistance. And again, that wasn't happening everywhere. We weren't in Texas. The illegal immigrants were not getting all that assistance. But in these sanctuary cities, they were living off of the dime of the American taxpayer. Your family came here legally in 1970. I was born in the USA a few years after that. Oh, my family came here legally in 1970. Where's your family from? I was born in the USA a few years after that. Supporting illegal immigration is exactly like telling someone's children to go play on a highway. Well, and not just that, it's not fair for the people who are trying to come here legally, who spend all that money, who are waiting in line. And a lot of people feel away, especially in Latin America, because it's easier for an American to get a visa to go stay in Latin America than it is for a Latin American to get a visa to come live in the United States. And I understand that, but the problem is that either way it goes, you have to prove financial solvency. So the issue is not that the United States doesn't want to give them the opportunity. It's like, can you support yourself? So if you can't support yourself, then they're not gonna allow you to come to the United States. Furthermore, we're talking about in the United States, the entire world. I'm not saying everybody in the entire world. I'm saying people from all countries around the entire world want to flood into the United States all at once. So we have to prioritize certain visas over others because we can't take in everybody that wants to come versus a lot of these other countries are dealing with a much smaller influx of immigration, and they are meeting a standard of having to be able to financially provide for themselves. So they're not coming and living off of government assistance. Without illegals working, they can't afford regular salary wage workers. I don't know. The prophets say otherwise. The prophets say otherwise. I don't know. I'm sure some businesses will have to be forced to close down, sure. But a lot of these, like these major factories and things like that, the prophets say otherwise.
To fire them in the least progressive way possible.
It's an honest day's work. But for a growing number of day laborers, there's nothing honest when it comes to their paychecks.
He owes us about $55,000 in robbed salary.
You mean to tell me that the businesses begging for more illegal workers aren't taking care of the illegal workers they have right now? This sure destroys the idea that...
Because what are you going to do? If I decide I'm not going to pay, if I decide I'm not going to pay you for the week and you're here illegally, what are you going to do? You're going to call the police? Are you going to try to sue me? Ma'am, let me get on the phone and call ICE right away. That's how they come at their employees. Versus if this was a legal immigrant, the legal immigrant can take legal action against the employer without fear of deportation.
Sanctuary cities and states help anyone achieve the American dream. When, as you're about to see, the reality of life in America for someone here illegally has and always will be a complete nightmare.
Your employer never paid them.
Every week it'd be, I'll pay you the next week. And at the end of the week, he would only pay us $100, $200.
Supporting a family of 5, he says he didn't have a choice but to just keep going back.
You could have 1 million followers and still not be able to pay your bills.
Over 1 million creators and brands are growing faster, engaging.
It makes me feel sad. I work hard for my money. I need it for my necessities.
Although Manuel's case was filed several years ago.
Sir, I am sure, I don't know where he's from. But if that man was only paying you $100 a week, you can't go back to your own home country where things are like cheaper, life is a little bit more comfortable, you might have more holidays. You don't think you could go back to your country and make $100 a week, depending on where you're from? Because like here in Colombia, I think the minimum wage is like $300 a month. That's not a lot of money, right? But that's on like the low, like this is Colombia, like that. Colombia minimum wage is less than like a Mexican minimum wage. So that's what I'm saying. The country he's from matters. Cause like I'm gonna be thinking like, oh no, but I could just go right back to where I'm from if you're only gonna pay $300 a week, $100 a week. Are you crazy?
Now, it was never resolved. And with immigration enforcement spreading fear in his community, workers' rights groups say cases of wage theft are increasing.
Since April 22nd, which was the day of the raid at the Pomona Home Depot.
So we've been told for years that illegal immigrants just want to come here and improve their lives while improving the lives of Americans. But don't you see that's not what's happening at all? Instead, the jobs that these folks are working have illegally been removed from a legitimate labor market because for years their corrupt predatory employers have gotten away with taking advantage of workers and underpaying them while saving money and claiming they're making.
The only time I've really seen illegal immigrants win is when they like start their own business. So I have a friend who is here on DACA. This was actually like my first boyfriend. But his parents brought him here, and like when he was young, I remember he actually almost got deported, and then like while he was in detention, ICE detention, DACA went into effect. So anyway, he started in an apprenticeship, and then he doing counters, and then he just started doing them himself and build up his own clientele. That kind of illegal immigrant is charging what they want. They're charging what the work is worth. But if you're an illegal immigrant, but he spoke English, but if you're an illegal immigrant that doesn't speak English and you don't know how to talk to people, negotiate prices, build up a clientele, you're going to struggle because you're going to have to go work for one of these companies that's going to dog you out.
The world a better place. And although those workers may have employment for some time, they can't just quit their jobs and go work somewhere else if their employer stiffs them, which it seems like is now happening a lot in many of these communities that we're told are better because they're sanctuary communities where federal laws don't apply. But now that ICE is in town enforcing federal laws, it seems like these businesses and their workers are having quite a conflict.
The wage theft are increasing.
Since April 22nd, which was the day of the raid at the Pomona Home Depot, we have detected
terrible.
about 30 cases across Home Depots of day laborers who are now owed money.
Alexis Teodora
I'm not gonna lie, that sucks. That has to be the worst situation to be. I feel for these people. Imagine like your employers already know ICE is out and they're on the loose, so they see this as an opportunity to effectively enact slavery. Like, I'm gonna get as much free work from you as I can because you're in fear of being deported. There's nothing you can do about it. Matter of fact, if you try to do something about it, I just might call ICE myself. This is terrible. They need to go to jail. Not the immigrants, these employers. They're like human scum. And not every person who hires illegal immigrants. If you're a person who hired an illegal immigrant and you paid them a fair wage and you were nice to them, you know, you still shouldn't do that. But like these people who hired illegal immigrants specifically for the purpose of exploiting them, this is human scum.
The worker rights director at the Pomona Day Labor Center. He says their cases of wage theft have skyrocketed in recent weeks.
Take them to work, they finish their shift, and at the end they don't pay them. And when the day laborers try to exert their rights to get paid, which is their right under the California Labor Code, employers usually threaten them with calling immigration.
You're going to deny him that and threaten him with immigration.
So the people who are bearing the brunt of this are the illegal day laborers who are at places like Home Depot, which just so happen to be the target of many recent immigration enforcement.
To me, the way to fix that would be demand your money up front. But see, everybody would have to do that. The problem is when you have a situation where it's a race to the bottom, then people will try to undercut you. Oh, he's not going to go work unless you give him the money up front. Well, I'll go work and you don't give me the money up front because I'm trying to undercut this other person. But if all of the day laborers were like, no, you have to pay us before we do the job, if they all stood on that, then that would eliminate that problem right there. But the problem is when you have a bunch of people in survival mode, there is no honor amongst thieves. Not calling them thieves, but y'all know what I'm saying. You're always going to have people that cross the picket line.
operations. You've got fly-by-night contracting operations, hiring workers off the street in an illegal, under-the-table manner. And it turns out that sometimes those workers don't get paid or treated properly. Is that fair? No, but it's only happening because people are here illegally. And since they're out there looking for illegal secret employment, this exploitation keeps happening. And you know something? It's going to keep happening even if everybody in these Home Depot parking lots had legal status. And that's because illegal, unregulated employment is so common. It's going to keep being offered. People are going to keep being picked up for secret jobs that never get reported. But the fascinating thing is we're not hearing about a legitimate business doing.
A lot of these people, I promise you, and I've heard them say, I've heard Colombians who went to the United States come back and they've said, my life is easier here in Colombia. Why? Because they come live with family. They get their national holidays. Yeah, they might not make a lot of money, but at least during like Christmas, the employer has to pay them double their wage. They have access to workers' rights and protections because they're working legally. The cost of living, it's lower. Yeah, is it going to hurt? It's going to be harder on them, yes, because they're making pesos. But it's like the American, especially if you're living in like a southern city or a place with no public transportation or everything is far, or depending on the zoning of the city, America is not built for you to be poor and struggling. It's not. We don't have the infrastructure. It's especially the American South. The American South is a very hard place to be poor. Like, don't have car problems in the American South. Your whole life stops. You can't even get to work. You lose your job. Like, it's not a place you want to be struggling. There are places around the world where it's a little easier to struggle. For example, let's say something happened here in Medellin. I tell people all the time, I rarely leave my barrio because I don't have a reason to. If I get sick, I go downstairs and I go 2 doors down. There's a pharmacy. If I go across the street, there's the bodega. If I want something to drink, right downstairs next door is the dentist. If I go walk around the corner, there's a fruteria. And if I go around the corner, there's a carniceria, so I can go get my fruit and my meat. If I need something for my hair, if I walk downstairs, turn the corner, there's a beauty supply store. If you have pets, there's a pet shop on every corner. My gym is like less than a 5 minutes walking distance from me. If I went to church, the Catholic church is like a 3-minute walk for me. So like if I was ever in a position to where I was struggling financially, this is like literally the best place to be, because I wouldn't even have to spend money on transportation.
Doing this to people, which must mean that the contracting groups hiring people and then refusing to pay them have legitimacy problems of their own, including possibly the immigration status of those workers as well.
Where is the justice in that?
Pomona City Councilwoman Nora Garcia says the city is hoping to find extra resources to help prosecute offenders.
Pay people what you owe them. It's quite that simple. Anyone who believes that America is the land of equal opportunity needs to be willing to give that to everyone, regardless of immigration status.
Because in California, every worker.
Hello.
What's your name?
I name it Laura.
Do you mean my name is Laura?
Yes. Perdón.
Where are you?
And some people
has
might
rights.
disagree because y'all might feel like, this is the risk they took coming here. I feel like these workers, if they ever get detained by ICE, then there should be some enforcement. If there has been wage theft, before they get sent home, these companies need to pay them their money. Because at the end of the day, they worked hard. And not only do they need to pay them their money, but the wages need to be at least minimum wage. Or else these owners should be put in jail. Because that's not right. And then that will be a lesson It will make an example of all these people who hire illegal immigrants for the purposes of exploitation. But all these people, they need to be entitled to get sent back home with all the wages they worked for.
Okay, so something very strange is happening right here. These activists are absolutely outraged that companies are out there and not paying people, but they're not telling us who those companies are. Is it Amazon? Is it Walmart? Tell us who the bad guys are.
I'm sorry, y'all. My comments were not updating. What up, Cha-Cha? Good to see you. Who else is in here? Binky was in here? Oh, I miss at Binky Bianca. She might pop in. Good to see you, Cha-Cha. Sorry, y'all. Sometimes my comments don't update and I'll just be going and going.
Are so that this doesn't happen to anybody else. No, they're not doing that. For some reason, these companies are a secret. And we aren't even told the name of the company or the boss who this gentleman works for. Who is his boss? Why doesn't he pay people? Where is he finding his workers? It's very strange that the identities of these employers are being hidden. And we all know if Target or Best Buy was doing this to people, it would be a massive story, which is how you know the legal status of these quote unquote employers is probably also up in the air. And it's almost as if the news wants us to believe ICE is making things worse for people in the country illegally, but doesn't want us to know that people in the country illegally are preying upon each other in a work environment. And the truth is that illegal immigration is essentially modern day slavery. And now that that's coming to an end, there's even less of a reason for people here
and that's
unlawfully.
why, like, these liberals, like, they really, the ones who were like calling MAGA racist and Trump supporter racist, it's like y'all literally sit on the internet every day and are like, well, who's going to pick our food? Or who's going to cook in the kitchen? Or who's going to clean the toilets? Or who's going to babysit the kids? And it's like, you can pay an American citizen a livable wage to do most of those jobs. Probably not the field. I ain't even gonna hold you. Most Americans don't want to do farm work. But like, I know plenty of them. I know plenty of Americans. Like, I know plenty of Black women in America that have like cleaning businesses who go clean houses. I got a friend now. You pay her for the right price for $400, she gonna come clean your house. Okay?
To stay.
Most of the attention that's been focused on the Trump administration's deportation plans has focused on arrests and removals of aliens unlawfully present in the United States. There's another separate deportation program that the Trump administration is running at this time that's received a lot less notice, and that is its voluntary deportation program. That program began on the president's first day in office, January 20th, 2025. In addition, the Trump administration has reconfigured the CBP-1 app that the Biden administration used to funnel hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants into the United States, into the CBP.
Okay, so while ICE raids are making headlines and we're hearing from activists about how they're so horrible and so inhumane, most of the people leaving America have decided to do it on their own. And that's what's got these activists so upset and these employers that hire people illegally so concerned, because it means that
I talked to a couple people who are like, I'm thinking about leaving on my own, because you got to understand, like, especially if it's a situation where they've been working and saving, they're going to go to their country and be good. There are some people who have already bought houses in their own. They already have houses in their own countries. They're just here working, stacking up, you know. So like the ones who felt like, okay, I don't want to deal with this, or I don't want to be in a situation where, you know, I get arrested and my family's here and my family's there. A lot of them are like, okay, yeah, I'll take the $1,000. I already got something stacked up. Who this is going to hurt more than anything is the brand new immigrants who came these last 4 years and never really even got an opportunity to get a job, right? But if it's a situation where, y'all, my camera is about to die. But if it's a situation where they've been here illegally for like 10 years or something, they built some marketable skills, they've saved some money. When I tell you they're going to go back to their country and be good, They're going to be living better than what they were living in the United States. They're going to have cleaner food, fresh air. They're not going to have to work as much. Their US dollars are going to stretch because they're letting them leave with their US dollars.
Illegal immigration isn't working out the way our televisions tell us it does. We're supposed to believe that every worker here illegally wants to stay forever and they're just having the time of their lives. But the shocking thing about this is if being in America illegally was such a wonderful thing and these illegal immigrants were really as treasured by their community.
I'm sorry, another resource that they might have access to, and again, this is not everybody, but if you were here like illegal, let's say it's a grandma and she's been here illegally for 30 years and she done had about like the mom, she got like 4 kids and they're here legally and they're working. Do y'all think they're going to let her go back to where she's from and starve? No, all of them are going to be sending her remittances. She might not even have to work. That money is going to stretch. So this is, of course, case by case dependent, but in some situations, a lot of situations actually, these illegal immigrants now have ties to the United States and they're going to be able to go live a better quality of life than a lot of struggling Americans right now. I'm just being honest about the situation. It's not a loss for everyone that has to go back.
As activists tell us, they wouldn't be going home on their own.
On the heels of that, DHS is also offering $1,000 stipends and free airline tickets to aliens who agree to go home on their own. 1 million foreign
That's a lot of
workers
people.
have left the workforce since March. In other words, while DHS has deported about 200,000, it appears that anywhere between 500,000 and 1 million other aliens have left the United States.
Dang! So more people have left voluntarily than those that have gotten deported. And the thing is, if you leave voluntarily, Trump has said you're not going to be banned from the country. So if you do a voluntary deportation, you have the opportunity. Now, it might not be granted, but you have the opportunity to apply for a visa. That is actually very generous. So not only are they giving them the opportunity to self-deport, they're paying for the flight home, sending them home with $1,000, and leaving the door open for you to get in the back of the line and apply for citizenship. That is very generous of the United States. Like, you are not going to convince me that this is evil, especially when I'm going to pull it up again how these people were acting in Mexico last week. For my people who just now came in, I've got to show this. I got to show it again. Y'all, if y'all are just now here, please hit the like button. I have got to show. I got to run this back. Because, baby, they were in Mexico cutting up this past week over legal immigration. Now, I even showed them cutting up 6 years ago over illegal immigration. See, Mexicans don't want to take people from other countries in Latin America either. Like, they were acting a fool. But I'm going to show y'all this again and how they were cutting up over Americans legally immigrating to Mexico. Hold on. They acted a fool. I ain't never seen nothing like this. I have never even seen the most racist person in the United States, like for real racist person, cut up the way they were cutting up.
City that got mostly peaceful.
Yeah.
And what's got these Mexicans so upset is peak irony. When remote work became popular in 2020, more and more Americans moved to Mexico City to take advantage of cheaper prices.
It was just a dream that I had. And that dream is just to be treated like everyone else, to be treated fairly, equally, and to have peace. And Mexico City is the place where I've been able to achieve that.
Since then, prices have soared and people are pissed.
They were finding Gringo owns American-owned businesses, and hold on, let me make this bigger so y'all can see it. And they were like, I'm gonna run this back. They were bashing out the windows, looting the businesses, while people were inside these businesses, which is extremely wild behavior. I've never seen even like right wingers in the United States go break into businesses of illegal or because in the United States we have a lot of, in Texas we have a lot of illegal immigrants who own businesses. I've just never seen this happen to this. Like, I've never seen anything like this. Like, I've seen people riot and loot over like issues like George Floyd, but like to like target immigrants like this, I've never seen that happen in the United States, whether they be legal or illegal.
That is peak irony.
Yo,
When
look at
remote
this.
work became popular in 2020, more and more Americans moved to Mexico City to take.
Look, y'all, this on this wall, they wrote in English, unalive a gringo. Unalive. They're calling for the unaliving of Americans and Canadians. And like they say unalive. And y'all, here's the crazy part about this. It is not the Americans who are driving up the prices. What's going on is, this happens here in Colombia too. Over like 93% of the housing market is owned by Colombian citizens. So what happens is, when they see Americans coming with American dollars, they are the ones who choose to jack up the prices. For example, in my apartment building, I know for a fact I pay more for my apartment than everybody else for the same thing. There are Colombians here who have bigger apartments than me and more space, and I pay more than them. And the reason why I pay more than them is because I'm coming as an American citizen. I can't get two co-signers. They know I'm coming with my dollars. So people here will not let me pay market value. I would prefer to spend $500 a month on this apartment. I didn't ask to spend what I spend on this. So it is not the fault of the American citizens. It is the fault of the landowners. And like, my whole thing is, take it up with them. Take it up with the people who jack up the prices.
Vienen de otros países, en su mayoría extranjeros, a querer imponer su cultura, sus precios y desplazar a los mexicanos, a los nativos de estas tierras.
So he was saying that they come over here and they like basically don't respect the culture, and they come over here with their prices, and it's displacing the Latinos.
Telling me mass migration has negative effects on the host
It's displacing the Mexicans.
city or country? Unbelievable. Some of these protest signs are so on the nose that I had to make sure I wasn't being swindled by AI. Gringo, stop stealing our home. Your new home is an invasion. Learn Spanish, respect our culture, pay effing taxes. Spanish is spoken here.
Y'all, this is in Mexico. This is in Mexico. And again, these protests are not towards illegal immigration. It's towards legal immigration. Imagine if Americans behave this way over legal immigration. Oh my gosh, we would never hear the end of it. We would never hear the end of it. And in Mexico, I've showed y'all instances where they're protesting against the legals and they don't want any immigration. Wow.
Gringo, I want you to go back to your country, not your home.
And this gringo word. Okay, let me tell y'all something. When people call me gringo to my face, it can be like, depending on context, it could be negative. But honestly and truly, I always feel like there's a little bit of a undertone to it. So like, I go out of my way to find something. Like, if you call me gringo, fine. If you call me gringa, okay. Gorda, okay. Yeah, because you fat. I'm sorry. But like, when I feel like you're coming at me the wrong way, I don't complain about it. I just make sure that I call you another name back. And then if you want to complain about it, then I can just say, what's wrong? There are terms of endearment.
Pay taxes, learn Spanish, respect my culture. Have Americans in Mexico tried shutting down highways? I hear that one's effective. Or burning the Mexican flag? Or starting cars on fire? Come on, guys, the blueprint for success has already been laid out. No human is illegal on stolen land.
Okay.
We are not going anywhere. Our family is not going.
Like I said at the beginning of this live, you would never see American citizens protesting the deportation of illegal American citizens in Mexico. Like that has never happened. Nor would you ever see it here in Colombia. When people overstay their visa, and here's the thing, it's a different type of illegal here. Majority of times when Americans overstay their visa here, they're not intending to stay forever or years and years. They'll like overstay for a month. So you get 6 months out of the year to stay here on a tourist visa. So their mentality be like, okay, I want to stay like 2 more months and I'll just pay the fine. I'll just pay like the $1,000 fine, right? And sometimes even then when they like have booked a flight and they're going to leave, the Colombian government could say, well, actually, no, you have to go through the deportation process, even though they were leaving already. That has happened. They might make you miss your flight and you have to go through an official deportation process, which is really bad to have on your record because other countries can see that and they might decide to decline to give you a visa or something like that. So that is not good. Always leave when you're supposed to leave. Leave on time. So a lot of people in Latin America get upset because they're like, why can these Americans just kind of come and go? And why is it easier for them to get a tourist visa? Well, because the problem is that when y'all come to the United States on a tourist visa, not all, because I have a friend here he's a business owner here in Colombia, and he goes back and forth to the United States frequently, but he can prove financial solvency. And he can prove he has ties here. That's why he goes back and forth like that. He was just at the beginning of the year in the United States. But the reason why it's easier for us to come here is because of the whole issue of financial solvency. First of all, as an American, there are no jobs for you here. You cannot go to Mexico or Colombia and easily find a job. They employ their own people. The only job you can get is teaching English, really. And even then you have to meet certain qualifications. There's a lot of competition because that's the only thing that you can do. So, and not just that, our immigration patterns are differently. So because we're coming from a country with a higher currency, most people are not going to overstay their visa for a long period of time, versus a lot of the times people are coming to the United States with the intention of overstaying a visa. Like with the intention of overstaying their visa and staying in that country for a very long time. So the immigration patterns are different. That's why we're treated differently. And I know that sounds messed up, but like realistically, if the United States said, we're going to have an equal visa policy with Mexico, we're going to give all Mexican citizens 6 months to stay in the United States, and they don't on a tourist visa. So, and they don't have to prove financial solvency. They can just fly in, we put a stamp on their passport, and they don't have to prove they can take care of themselves. Y'all, my God, that would just be complete. Most people would see that as like, this is my free ticket to come in America and just stay forever and find a job. Like, versus American citizens. Another reason why this is different, and it's not right, you should never be in a country illegally, is even if an American citizen does overstay their visa, they're not going to be working or competing with Mexicans for jobs. They'll be working for a company overseas, and then they'll be bringing their dollar in, and that stimulates the economy, versus like draining from public resources and Mexicans having to compete for job. Where the negative impact is cost of housing. But again, That is the citizens of those countries deciding to jack up those prices, where they could easily say, I'm going to give this housing to a local. But I don't support illegal immigration either way. Are protesters in Mexico City really calling Americans gringos and telling them to leave? I thought we had a better relationship. That's what's happening. Yes, they are, but I'll show y'all another video. I showed you that they did that, but it's not just us they do this to. They were doing this in Tijuana. Oh, I'm gonna show you this. They do it to other Latinos. So while they're calling Americans racist for deporting Latinos and everybody else who came here illegally, I'm going to show you proof that they do this to other Latinos. Okay, I'm going to share this again. This was 6 years ago. So a lot of people want to blame this one that I'm showing y'all now. Now, the one I just showed y'all was from last week, but a lot of people want to blame anti-immigrant protests in Mexico on Donald Trump. They're like, oh, these are retaliatory protests. No, they've been protesting against illegal immigration in Mexico. I'm going to show y'all. So they're telling the Hondurans to go home. Y'all, this is not right, but it's just so crazy. To me, it's just so crazy seeing this level of anti-immigration protests and then hearing people from this same country call American people racist. It's like the irony of it all.
Habrá gente que piense, pero no, señor, estoy en un acontecimiento natural.
So they're saying this is in Tijuana. A united Tijuana will never be defeated. Okay. You prefer them? Go with them. That's what the woman said. You are not welcome here. A traitor is not welcome in Mexico.
Hay centros de detención en los Estados Unidos.
Now, this woman right here in this picture, she is like a pro-immigrant, so she doesn't agree with all these people protesting. And now she wants to bring up that there are detention centers in the United States. But like, ma'am, even like the most MAGA area you can go to, you will not see protests against illegal immigration this massive, right? Not only that, they don't get as angry and as violent. Like, MAGA is not behaving like that over illegal immigration. MAGA will go to the voting polls over that before they stand in the streets and do all this. They will.
No. Que la paz esté contigo, amigo. Que la paz esté contigo. Bendiciones en tu camino.
Y'all see how they were treating that girl, and she's like, peace to you. I'm a friend with you. And it's like, blessings to you. And it's like, girl, them people are fueled by a lot of anger. Oh, y'all, the irony of this poster, inmigrantes sí, ilegales no. So basically they're saying legal immigration, yes. Illegal immigration, no. The United States can't say the same. Oh, okay. So now all of a sudden, when it comes to the United States, y'all don't know the difference between legal immigration and illegal immigration. Okay. We don't want it. Oh, I'm gonna show y'all another one. That ain't it. I'm gonna show y'all another one. Y'all, they had these illegal immigrants running for their lives. I'm gonna show y'all this again, and then I'm gonna get off of here.
Lineups feel effortless.
Poor people in the United States. That's what we've been saying. The people in New York. That's why New York went as red as it did. No, Trump did not win New York, but New York went pretty, like, it went redder than what it's been in a very long time. And a lot of that had to do with a lot of these New Yorkers are struggling to pay rent. And you had the city of New York paying $400 and $500 a night for them to be at places like the Row Hotel. And you have liberals to this day still pretending like none of that happened. Well, Mayor Eric Adams sat in front of Congress and admitted that they spent billions of dollars on illegal immigrants, that they were spending this money. It's not a conspiracy at this point, right? You had people like Nick Shirley going in front of some of these migrant shelters and asking them what type of benefits they were receiving. And they were saying, we're getting money on food stamps. They're getting cash assistance, cell phones. And not to mention New York's own homeless population. Now they don't have room to go into the homeless shelters because it's overcrowded. And again, I'm not blaming the migrants. These sanctuary cities were promising these things. The border was left open. But these people here at this protest, they seem like the majority of them, y'all are going to see that there is a real hate. Had to protect the Mexican citizens from coming in there and doing harm to the migrants. Have y'all ever seen that happen? Have y'all ever seen MAGA get together in a mass protest and try to go physically harm illegal immigrants? Never. You will never see that in America. Never. And not in modern day America, you won't see that. Again, they just take it to the voting booth. You know, they talk shit on the internet and they take it to the voting booth. These people are hiding in a stadium in fear of their lives, and they're having to be protected from Mexican citizens. It's crazy. These people up in hotels and giving them cash assistance. They're upset with the humanitarian workers giving them food. They're acting like this. Oh, were these people being given some food? They acting a fool. But America is evil. We're wrong. We're racist. Because all of our migrants are getting sent somewhere where they can get 3 hots and a cot. If they self-deport, they getting $1,000. We paying for the plane ride. And they don't have to worry about American citizens running up on them, throwing stones at them. But the United States is an evil country. MAGA is evil and racist. Okay. Again, it's cool when you do it. It's a problem when I do it. But they're doing it to the max. This is actually sad. Okay, but we cannot have rules and laws. You know, it is what it is. It is what it is. I think it was very important to show this. And honestly and truly, sometimes I feel like I'm preaching to the choir. I really wish that people, were not so closed-minded, because I feel like liberals need to tap into content like what I'm presenting. Like, honestly and truly, from somebody who, again, I've lived around the immigrant community. I grew up with illegal immigrants. I have a nuanced perspective. For example, I do think amnesty should be provided for the dreamers. That's it. That's all. And then on top of that, I'm an American citizen in Colombia. I've been in Colombia for over a year now, legally. And I have a whole new understanding of Latin America. I have a whole new understanding of race relations. I see the United States from a different lens. As a matter of fact, I love Colombia a lot, don't get me wrong, but moving abroad has helped me see the United States through a more positive lens as well. It helped me to realize the kindness and the generosity of American people. Now, are we always the most happy, cheery people to be around? No, because we have to work a lot in the United States. We don't have as many holidays as people do in the United States. But as far as generosity, as far as being in support of humanitarian aid and getting behind good causes and helping those who have less than us, the United States is the most generous. Hands down. Hands down. It's not even close. It's not even close. Okay. With that said, guys, I have come. Let me see. I don't think this chat. Sometimes the chat doesn't update. I am coming to the end of the live stream. Y'all, I've been on here for a very long time. But yeah, I mean, share this with a liberal friend. Your liberal friend who cut you off, like, in November when they found out that you voted for Trump. If you're not blocked, share this live with them. Share this live with all of your family members who are calling MAGA racist and Donald Trump a racist and saying that ICE deportations are inhumane. Please. Okay, with that said, y'all have a good night. Thank y'all for showing up. Hit the like button on your way out. I will see y'all tomorrow night.